What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Macro Perspective. As always, your hosts here, Marcos and Seamus. Well, I guess not always, because we've done some solo episodes in recent weeks due to, well, God, unforeseen circumstances.
Yeah, that's okay. And I think that's the beauty of this. I think we're finally realizing, guys, as you guys are watching this and understanding we're professionals and we're doing our own things. And Marcos in Vegas, I'm in LA, and we've got a handle. And, the podcast in itself, as much as we want it to be a passion project, does have to be adjusted for accordingly with our day to day. And that's why we got two hosts. That way we can get you guys the guests and the conversations we want to talk about without having to compromise on dates and miss out on people, because we have missed out on key people because we were gun ho about it's always got to be the two of us. Then we realized, how about we just do what's available and do what's best.
Right. You gotta take these curveballs and try to take them to the opposite field, for our baseball analogy of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think last time we even tried to do one of these, to do like a catch up and kind of like let people know what was going on and what we were trying to do in the future. And then I got to go pick up my son in the middle of it. So literally life comes at us. It's hard to dedicate time to something that you enjoy practicing and working on, such as
Yeah.
like this is like effectively a way of getting better at public speaking, which is one of the main reasons we did start this in the first place.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah.
I will say, just on that aspect of like looking back, it's been over a year. It's been like a year and a half technically. Um, we've definitely gained some insight. We've chased certain things down rabbit holes that weren't for us. We figured out a lot of things we've never figured out before. And we've definitely gotten better at communication, I would say that. And it has affected our professional aspects. We've gotten great networks or access into certain rooms, if you might say, just because of, I guess, the precedence of saying, I have a network, I have a platform, I have a podcast. And I think that has been tremendous for both of us.
Right. Like, well said. Yeah.
Well, what's been going on with you, man? What are some things we want to talk about today? Maybe a little update for the gang, or just a free flow conversation of just some things that have been on your mind.
Man. Okay. So I think the first one is like dieting in general, because it's
Okay.
been um, going on, I guess, February, March, April, right? Okay, so realistically, it's like three full months, and it was like the end of January where I got started into something, and started to realize like why people like in we'll call it like a normal bodybuilding prep will give themselves 16 to 20 weeks to really kind of like get there after like a building phase, which I was,
Yeah.
it's probably the first time I really like gave it so much time and latitude and just, allowed if in the event that things would go sideways, like on a particular weekend or with travel. So like, I think that's an interesting topic about like setting yourself up with realistic expectations of body recomposition.
Yeah.
And while 30 days can really kickstart you, have your
Yeah.
body feeling good and, maybe see some of those newbie gains for people that haven't been working out in a while, um, yeah, like this go around. I mean, it's been fast, but slow, you know what I'm saying?
Mm,
For me.
yeah.
And I know a lot of people are getting their like May challenges started, 60, 90 days heading into summer, accountability programs and all that. And I think that because I've seen so many of them is a good place to like talk about um, expectations that you can realistically see in like 1 month, 2 month, 3 month.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what's the shortest and longest amount of time you've tried to do some recomposition and weight loss?
So recomposition, I actually did something starting from 2022 to 2013 summer. So that was like a year and a half process of gaining muscle. The first year in 2022, I gained like 10 pounds of muscle, but obviously came another 10 pounds of body fat with that as well.
Hmm.
And with that being said, I wanted to maintain the muscle as much as I could. So I started my cut in January to have a photo shoot for June of last year or May of last year. So 5 to 6 month cut. the reason I did a cut like that is I do it longer. I know that, peak bodybuilders and stuff like that, they'll do like a 16-week or whatever. I was doing more like fat loss sprints. And when I did the math and kind of knew what I was capable of doing, and also incorporating certain fast loss sprints where like the week like that, I would do like a 2 week sprint and then I would do like a 1 week, like, oh, it's my birthday week. I would do a 2 week sprint and then it was like Desiree's birthday week or something like that. It was over a span of 5 months. I looked good on the photo shoot. Wasn't the best, but I maintained the muscle that I had when I looked at my DEXA. So it was like a year and a half long process of gaining muscle, um, having a coach, and then also like doing the recomp or like the fat loss phase was like a 6 month phase. And I do it slow because I've for me personally, I've had a lot of ups and downs with my weight, and I always bloat and stuff. I would say ever since 2020 to 2024 now, this last 4 years, especially this last 2 years, is the first time I would say with body recomposition that I've sustained realistically where I can eat normally and stuff like that and actually hear my own hunger cues. Because before then, I was doing a lot of fat. I wasn't doing fat loss protocols. I was doing weight loss protocols and doing water cuts due to my jiu-jitsu and wrestling career. So now I feel like I'm normal in a sense that I can hear my own hunger cues. And that's why I wanted to take it slow. I didn't want to do the intense stuff that I used to do before, if that makes sense.
Hmm. That makes sense. Yeah. Forget that you're master of water manipulation because because of all of your training background. Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. I think I wouldn't have expected it to take as long to really manipulate body fat, even though it's actually really rapid, like in the grand scheme of things. Um, and then also, like, I think it's been really helpful for me to explain that to people that do now have access to DEXA scans.
Yeah.
Um, we can plug the other company that you're moonlighting for, bod, right?
Well, they're going to be, yeah, they're going to be on the pod soon enough. So people, but bod,
Yeah.
body overview or body overview data or something like that. Yeah, I think that's what it stands for. I should probably get fired for not knowing their own acronyms. Body overview data. That's what it stands for.
Okay, bod for short. And they're come in and get access to quick scans and things that can kind of like let you kind of touch in on your health.
Yeah,
And it's like I think they've grown in popularity. The cost has gone down, at which you can just access a quick
yeah.
a quick scan. Um, and
And if you if you do like a monthly, and you do like the HSA thing, technically 40% off.
well, for you, 28
Yeah,
here. Yeah, the state tax, bro. You don't luck out in that
I
regard.
know, right?
Um,
Jeez, gosh, man.
um, but no, not like, yeah, like you just said, an HSA card could pay for it, makes it super affordable. Um, so you can, in full transparency, like unless you are maybe a master manipulator, or it's like maybe the second or third time you've tried to like really go into like a fat loss phase like that in
Yeah.
particular, right? I feel like maybe every 2 months, would be a good cadence, wouldn't you? I feel like monthly is like too quick.
Monthly is too quick, unless like you're like on a short term thing. Like if it's coming close to summer or something like that, and you want to do that. But I would say 2 months is appropriate. 6 weeks maybe.
Yeah, I could see
Quarterly is
6.
probably the best too. You know.
I think quarterly is good if you're not like in the weeds of like tracking like
Yeah.
to a T and like seeing your,
You're just
maybe
checking once in a while. You just keep an eyeball on it. You know.
right, yeah, and um, well, okay, like what's the average like percentage body fat you see with somebody losing on a month to month basis?
Dude, honestly, it depends. It depends.
Okay, what's
But
what's the low
I've,
end? What's the low end if you're
I just
tracking
see
it?
like honestly, technically, just 1% is what I've seen, or if that, if that. But they have to be. If it's a body fat person, like that person was starting to be big to begin with, if that makes sense. If you're already kind of lean, I'm like, we're not really going to see much here. You know, we're fighting over little strands. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, Yeah, that's a good way of kind of looking at that. I feel like 1% on the low end, maybe up to 3% on the high end in a 1 month, right?
And that's like in 1 month. That means for that person, they're probably a little bit bigger. They dialed in that 30 days, and like their water was legit, and it got into the muscle the day of their DEXA scan on the next one.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Okay. Well, since we're on this topic, and I have a photo of my most recent one and all my
Mm.
data analysis here, I wonder if I can share
Sure.
share it here.
Ooh, this
Ooh,
would be
let's
good.
see. Well,
I feel like on top of this DEXA scan talk, we could talk about something else later. Uh, um, that's taking over the world as we both know it. Is those things that is taking over the internet by storm.
yeah, yeah. Um, cool. Well, I thought I could just plug my phone in and share it like you do Zoom, but Riverside doesn't have that feature apparently.
Dang, Riverside. Dang. But anyway, well, give us the lowdown. You did a scan.
No, yeah, no. I just had to upload it to the, you know, had to upload it real quick here, and then
Yeah.
there it is. All right, we're gonna share. We're gonna share my info here. How well can we see
This is
that?
dope. Guys, this is a DEXA scan for y'all watching. If you don't know what that is, dual X-ray imaging. Um,
Oh, there we go.
Basically, we're just looking at bone mineral density, fat mass, muscle mass, and then with some machines, the capacity should be that they have visceral adipose tissue, which I think this one
Ah,
should.
I got an older machine over here. So, all right.
Sheesh, no God. Well,
Yeah. All right. So you can see here. Actually, I have my like 1 month apart scans because I tried to be diligent, and there was like a
mhm.
one-off one because I was testing other machines and kind
Something
of
else. Yeah, yeah,
yeah other data. Um, and I think that this is again a decent job, right? so,
yeah.
so
Yeah.
so going from right here. Oh wait, hold up. Let me since you can see it on my screen, where's the actual image? There it is. All right. So can you see my cursor, Seamus?
Yeah, you're good.
All right, right. Like you can see like starting body fat percentage at 17.1 and then the most recent scan at 7.2. And so again, effectively
I'm the 1 percentile, bro. You're the top 1%, bro. What
I
a
I
beast.
will tell you that I definitely don't feel that way because I'm like goodness, like people that get on stage, like I can only imagine what they're trying to get to. Um
They're like passing out up there, dude.
I know, yeah, I'm not gonna try to get that to happen. But like, so obviously the key influencer here was, and the name of the game was try to minimize lean tissue loss. And it kind of happened between the first two scans. And maybe you can talk about
Oh, yeah,
this,
yeah.
Seamus. Like, why did that happen so aggressively in the first 30 days?
Usually, the first 30 days, the reason why there's a bit of a lean tissue loss compared is like, first, I would say it's water manipulation, the cell volume itself. Remember, most of the cell is 7% water. And you also have to think about nerves too. Nerves are about 90% water too. So that's why there's also a strength perspective that you lose as well from a function standpoint. But then also at the same time, cell volume and then muscle glycogen itself, right? That's stored in there as well in the muscle. And that's part of it as well coming down. And then food weight does come down a little bit. So it sucks that it comes down, but that right there, that 5 pounds is probably more water. And then if you notice the lean mass later, notice how it locks in and it stays. That's like probably your true sarcomere myofibril actual protein density in your body. Where if we suck the water out of you, you're holding onto this much muscle, which is 180 pounds of muscle, guys, for what, 5'11", 5'10" male. Fucking Marcos is skin dick shredded right now at 7%, dude.
With a good tan and a little bit of good lighting, it looks great. But it's still,
Downcasting. Yeah.
it still is like that first from the first like peak, because that was the most muscle quote muscle I've ever seen on a DEXA. And in between this, like no one can see like there's the dot 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 part right there. Right there's this. I love how this actually gives me the first scan I ever did, which was back in
Yeah.
2016 before I even worked with Cinegenics. Buddy of mine was like, "Hey, you want to come and do a DEXA?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And he's all, "You also have to do a VO2," and I was like, "Dope, we'll
Uh,
let's do it." Right. So this right here, was me at 22.8. So I have 8 years difference between those scans, like almost to the day. And this was me in peak CrossFit shape. So this was me not ever even worrying about composition.
Yeah.
This was just like, this is where I kind of hovered around with training as much that to try to make like the regional round of training at the time. Um, so I was like stoked when the scan before I was like right below it. I was like, yeah, let's
Wow.
go. I finally like bested my 22-year-old self. Um, but when I actually got like in the scans you don't see, um, there was like a gap between this one on 123.24. It was like a year and a half because I was doing every 2 weeks trying to see if I'm actually building muscle. And guess what, guys? Like, it wasn't as great. It was not happening to the rate at which I would have expected, or even kind of like maybe based off of like literature. Like it like kind of blew up in the beginning. Like I kind of like got some cell volume from eating a lot more food, and then it kind of just it just did the same thing that it's doing right now. It just kind of hovered in this like area. And I became so fixated on information and data that like I'm like, oh, it's not working. I need to eat more food. And realistically, I needed to give my training far more time. So,
You got to let it express itself a little bit more. That's why I think, like with the fat loss phase, especially for you, Marcos, like that's why I like when people say, "Oh, we're going to do a 16-week fat loss phase." I just think in my head like 20 weeks because you got to have like a week or two of zigzag, you know? And I think we talk about this a lot with like physique competitors. Their best muscle on a DEXA scan is like the day or two after their competition because now like, they ate and like, and you got to give yourself like a week or two or even 4 weeks of like letting your body express what you just did to it.
mhm.
Because sometimes like I did that photo shoot and then like 2 weeks later I looked better and I was like, maybe I could do a photo shoot again. Maybe I could do a photo shoot. But it's yeah, stuff like that.
Oh yeah, and so actually, I have another one that shows that like kind of data lapse, if you will, right? So these are, or is that the same one? No, it's a different one. All right.
Yeah, no, there's a new one.
That's the new one. All right, where is it? Come here. There it is. All right. So you can see on this one where these scans that are like pretty close in proximity, like 3 weeks apart, and it was in that phase like of building because obviously you can see that my body fat was going up and my tissue as a whole was kind of doing that same thing. I was like, oh, I'm gaining fat. I was like, great, what was going on? And it could have just been that the surplus was like too high at that point in
Yeah,
time. It was like probably time
yeah.
like um and like again like the peak that I had seen at that point in time was this like 177 mark. So then again I was like, all right, I'm just going to step away from doing scans for a while and just feel good with training and focus on performance for
Dude, can I make a comment on that for a second? Sorry to
no,
interrupt.
you're good.
The scans, but then stepping away from scans, but then also like stepping away from tracking.
Mhm.
Like, how did you feel about that?
Oh, like psychologically?
Yeah, like just from the tracking from the scans, and like if you ever take time off tracking like your macros and stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean at that point um there probably should have like this wasn't the like I got my weight got probably pretty close to the 233 mark on the scan. Um
Yeah,
by the end of the year because that's like I pushed it through basically. I basically started the diet going into 2022, um,
yeah,
and it was relieving. Um, I was still tracking the food, but then after like the beginning of that 2022 era was like no longer me working with a coach, and I just kind of was like, it took me a long time to really like hone in on like wanting to track at any capacity. So I was just more so focused on my metrics in the gym, seeing
yeah,
the numbers
yeah,
get stronger. And like I didn't document any of my training, which I probably should have a little bit more at that point in time. But I knew it was, I knew it was like, you just know. I feel like you can know. You're like, these things are feeling better. These things are finally moving, you know?
yeah.
And I don't know. It could be relieving. I think that for some people, it might be quote unquote a little bit necessary. But I do think this also highlights like not being, again, don't be overly afraid when you are putting on body fat because you can obviously do, a good deal of an actual diet, as you see in this one, like in a 2 month
Yeah.
period, to really influence that weight, especially like if you're really like pushing food to a level that is, I mean, it was never uncomfortable. I could always eat, but
Yeah.
but I think I was honestly building a lot of like bad habits of like thinking like my performance was directly tied to like eating that much food.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think sometimes there's a bit of laxing on the tracking, but like yeah, like you said, you can lax on lifestyle habits. And when you do tracking, it sometimes comes to show like as a diary, as a journal. Oh, what were other things happening in that day, right? Or in that week? And I know that when I lax on the tracking, like I did a year off of macro tracking. I stayed around the same weight, but there definitely was less there was like less urgency to be like, well, I'm not necessarily seeing what my calories are at the end of the day, so like I go eat more, or like there's no checks and balances. So there's definitely that, but like you said, there's it's alleviates some mental pressure, and you can train and feel good training, and you're like, you know what, let the body do its thing, and sometimes it's cool to have that mental alleviation.
Right. Yeah. And so then me removing myself from that for a really extended period of time, and to be honest, like the first go around of like dieting afterwards, like life changed and I couldn't actually stick to it. And it took me a while, like really up until like really 2023, like summer of 2023, like late summer, that I actually like got on it, like, as we were talking about, like our October challenge, I was like really good. And then the rowing challenge came up with Cinegenics, and like I like kind of ballooned back up a little bit, like because I was trying
Yeah,
to go back into like a performance thing. Um,
honestly, yeah,
and like, like I still like doing CrossFit esque things,
yeah,
weekend warrior, if you will.
yeah.
And so, those things kept on like kind of finding their way in there. And, but, so then stepping away for a good period of time, focusing on, those like strength indicators, feeling good, maybe being a little uncomfortable. My mom was making comments. She's like, "Oh, I'd like you to be skinnier." And it's like, I mean, I'm living in a pretty optimal range of 10 to 20%. I'm on the higher end of like optimized, right?
Yeah.
But she's like, in your face and all these different things. And I'm just like,
Dude, that's the weird thing. That's the funny thing. The face is such a weird thing because I have like a rounder face, and um, bro, it's so weird. And I talked about this with someone about like the skin down here or like the skin in the jaw, where it's like I'm low teens body fat, right, year round. When I got into my that physique phase last year, I got
mhm.
to 168 in weight. I'm 171 right now. Okay, Marco. So I'm 171. I was 168 on my photo shoot day.
Mhm.
But the weirdest thing, that's a physique look where I felt fragile. I wasn't necessarily that fragile. I don't think I was fragile like the person on stage, but I was fragile enough where it's like, anything throws us off. I'm having a bad day. But I was low calories. I think I got to like 1,700 calories for me. Crazy thing is, I'm up to like 2,600 calories now, right?
Yeah.
I'm only 3 pounds over that weight I did for that photo shoot. But the crazy thing now is like my body doesn't look that way, even though it's only 3 pounds. It's
Mhm.
only 3 pounds. It doesn't look like it did on that photo shoot. It was a lot leaner. The stomach area didn't hold as much body fat. But now that I'm on a performance goal, more of like a runner and endurance, like a hybrid athlete, I notice that I'm really lean everywhere else except for like that little pouch on the stomach. And you're like, this is so weird. And then if I add more food to it, then my face, my face blows up first. I'm like, it's just so weird how the body responds to more food or something.
Right. And I think this is also kind of another thing to help understand body fat a little more. So if we take a look at the fat difference, right? So 0.1% difference of like this first scan to this 2024 scan, right? The total tissue difference is about 6.3 pounds, right? There is a little extra fat there, technically, like almost half a pound. But
Half a
like that
pound, yeah.
lean tissue difference, like
It's
this
like
version,
6 pounds, bro.
no, I know, but like, so this version of self, like it's 6 pounds heavier. Again, I mean, again, I know that the food here was like 4,000, 4,500 to be like there, right? But like that was also like
Damn.
strength of,
Peak CrossFit though.
yes, but like strength to body weight ratio was like, okay, it's cool that there was like a 6 pound difference. So that's a big difference on like pull up and like muscle endurance
Like the
capacity.
other the things that are like taxing your body. Yeah, yeah. I wish I see what you mean.
Yeah, like even here, and this is like another fascinating thing they talk about. Like, who was it? I forget which person that talked about. They look at like ethnicity, right? So I'm Hispanic, technically like half Hispanic, but they have like different ratios of like based on your your skeletal mass to the amount of lean you have. There's like a number, like a factor, and if you're going to perform a sport, there's actually like kind of an upper limit you actually want to have with like your lean tissue, and you want to focus more on like your strength and like your ability to move laterally and all those things. So while
Yeah.
maybe actually it makes more sense to actually carry less lean. But in the moment, I was like, I need to be skinnier, quote, and I need to be leaner because I want to see the effects of it. But like,
No, it makes a lot of sense because you can chase muscle. Like I think everyone wants to chase more muscle and stuff like that, right? But I think we were talking about this with another performance health coach, and he was talking about how he does like the Ironmans and the triathlons. It's like they're it would be counterintuitive or it would be such a negligence to actually gain more muscle because let's say your physics throws off a bike. Well,
mm-hmm,
you're not winning the bike race. I don't care how much muscled you are. I don't care how light your bike is. I don't care your technique. You're not winning that race because you're just not in the right weight criteria.
mm-hmm.
And then you do the bike, and then you got to go do a swim. And it's like I don't care if you have more muscle than me. I'm going to beat you on the swim. So it's like really understanding like the performance ratio. I think it's a tight window. Like you're saying, when you were 22 on 23, that muscle mass was great for the performance aspect. Maybe you're still performing that way, but maybe there was a slight perfect window for muscle mass to hit all the movements without that extra 6 pounds of pressure, right?
Yeah, which I mean, that could be again a big thing. And I mean, the strength was pretty good at 23. I feel like I hit some good numbers, but the strength, here at 233, I mean, um,
Something else.
was something else. I was like, okay, like
Fast move fast, bro.
yeah, oh, yeah, and so okay, let me talk about the psychological effects of going from here down
Right,
to here in
right.
training because I think that this is like really worthwhile in explaining for people. Right here at end of January, I was benching like 335 for 3 sets of three, and I was like, yeah, like hell yeah, I think next week I could try like at least a set of 4 or 5. Like I'm on it, I'm ready. Like it felt great. I got to like here, like a month or two in, and it was like 315 for a set of three was like my top end, right? With a 12 pound or, we'll call it 15 pounds, it's probably in the middle of that difference. And
Yeah.
so, like, I'm like, damn. And then where I'm at right now, touching a single at 315 is like, and like in the head, my like mind is like, yo, like, it shouldn't be this hard. But at the same time, too, under fueled, under recovered in a sense, right? You should still touch those like what is relatively heavy, like what feels like like a hard RPE, right? So once I finally got that in my head, it's like, yo, this is supposed to happen. I'm gonna try to like hit these things. If I fail, I was like, all right, like let me try it again next week.
You're still getting like the neurofeedback of it. You're still getting that neuro like thing.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah, and so then basically at like 4-4 was like the weekend before doing a CrossFit competition. I was like, I hadn't really done any squatting, but like I've done like leg like um, a similar loading on like a belt squat. So I was like, yeah, my leg strength's still there. But dude, axial loading when you have less mass on you versus just loading like quote like your legs and like completely different. Neural drive feels so different. But so I was
Feels
like,
good.
I
Feels
was going
better.
into that event and I'm like, oh shoot, like, am I gonna touch a weight like that for the better half of I'd say really the last decade, 315 has been pretty much there. It's been there since like 23. Like I can clean that, you know what I mean? And it was like truly basically a one
Scary,
RM.
bro.
It's like
Yeah,
drop.
I think that's smart programming, right? When you have all your cognition and you have all the benefits that you have from having extra body fat on and water weight and muscle mass and food that you like, you can throw around whatever you want. But when you got to get smart with the programming, right? Like I love the belt squat. I love the
Mhm.
adjusted movement, especially for a cut, because it's like I don't care about. I feel like sometimes we talk about this where you're going into the gym just to get it in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And sometimes that means not loading up the bar because it's, it's saving time and you're just trying to get it in and it's a stimulus, not an annihilation. And sometimes cognitively, if I have a long work day, I'm going to choose the leg press or something compared to the squat because I'm like, I know I can kill my legs, but my mind will still be able to function for the rest of the day, especially if I'm not having these calories and stuff.
Oh, dude. Yeah. So I mean, that was again like a really, it was it is really understanding training and keeping things in there. And honestly, like cycling movements in right now have been great because like I have to kind of start over. The
Yeah.
hybrid talk for both of us, like I really want to move my next phase into trying to do like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then for everybody out there, what that is, like I feel like it's actually pretty easy for a CrossFitter to potentially do this, but all right, like there is some numbers in there that like would be difficult. So 2 plates strict press, 3 plate bench, 4 squat, 5 dead, sub 6 mile, sub 7 row, all done in the same day.
Hell yeah. All right, put that up. I want to do that because, like, my goal is to. Okay, guys, by the way, before I say any of this, I'm 171.
Yeah,
When I work out with Marcos, I worked out with him and our previous other performance health coaches. They're all 215 and above. Okay,
not
they're
anymore.
like,
I'm not 215 anymore.
not anymore, not anymore. But when I was working out with you last summer, everyone's touching numbers. I will say one thing, and I'm going to die on this sword. I want to die on this sword. I don't care what no one says. When we were cable deadlifting, okay? When we were
Oh yeah,
cable
yeah,
deadlifting,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I kept the same weight, same reps and sets, maybe off, two on. I potentially feel like my posterior strength compared to yours. I think I'm up there. Okay,
Well, that's why I like this little challenge, man. You know,
so I want to do this challenge. Is my point.
because you have to be at a body weight where you can, you're
Do that.
agile enough to do that. And like, I mean, I think right now, like, I can bench that, but like strict press 2 plates, dude.
Fuck.
I mean, the only time I've ever really done that was probably at like a body weight of about like 210, 215. So I got some mass to put back on to do that. But then I also have to get like like the cardiovascular fitness to handle the running.
Yeah.
It's an interesting challenge because it's like you have to keep components of it in there. And oh, by the way, as I was like in the 220 range, right? We'll call it like 225 on DEXA because there's always a deviation. Um, I felt like at some point I was like, I'm about to squat 405 for a front squat. Now I'm doing back squats at like 295, and I'm like,
What the
what
fuck?
happened? What happened, bro?
I think it's always trade offs, right? You're trading off your physique look for some performance gains, and you've obviously been there before, so it's not like you're gonna lose it. You just got to get back into it.
Oh, it's the neural factor for sure. You
Yeah,
know. Um,
people don't get that.
but I do also want to show people something else too, and this is why picking a device that is consistent to you is the most important thing because seeing different data will fuck up your head and your psychology even more, right? And I'm sure you've all heard it, but um, here's so let's go to this one. All right, so here's a different DEXA machine in our organization with newer software, newer hardware, newer everything, right? But what you see here, no, I don't want to give you feedback on that. But what you see here is a whole different readout, completely different, right? You see the body fat percentage at 423, which was what all
Just
of
like 5 days before.
yeah,
No,
5 days before.
3 days. 3 days before the 426. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it was like a 3.2% difference in body fat, right? So again, like I know going into this that the data it was going to be higher because I did one previously, and it got me in the rabbit hole of like, like how much am I changing? Is the relative change going to be similar, right? Um,
Yeah. This comes to the conclusion that everyone should. How do I say this? When you're working with a certain like scale or something like that, you got to use the same one because if you use another one, it's just gonna throw you off, dude. Something's gonna happen.
yeah. So it was 3 days before, and then the other one was it was 320. So the other one was so it was 4 days before. 4 days before for one, 3 days before for the other, but like flipped. Like I did this machine 4 days after the first time, and this one 3 days before on the second time, right?
Yeah.
So the difference there of the 12.3 was 10.3 on the other. So I mean, again, 2.2%, right? And then on the other one, it was a, what is that, 2.9% loss, and then this one it was a 2.1, right? So again, like, so the relative change is pretty dang close on the machine, like from machine to
Yeah, pretty
meet now,
close. In
right?
terms of deviation, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, like that deviation was pretty dang solid, and that makes sense. Like the change should be pretty much the same from like the DEXA reading, but um, again, like you're like, oh no, like you see this fat number that looks way higher, or the lean tissue looking like different, like you've lost it. It's like, no, you're using a completely different device. So
We're using a completely different device. And I do want to say one thing about this, because Dextras are popular right now, and I think they're going to get more popular, and obviously they're just going to keep becoming like a gold standard. What is happening right now with these populations, guys, and these numbers and derivatives and algorithms, I think they're just getting so much better. And new data is getting better, not just on the hardware itself, the stuff that is reading you, the stuff that you lay down on is getting better, but the algorithms, the software they're using, and the populations that they can finally have access to of who has gotten DEXA scans as compared to the people that haven't is getting better. And I think it's becoming a little bit more strict, meaning they're really looking at the lean mass closely. They're really looking at that fast mass closely, and they're really trying to be as precise as possible.
right, and I agree. I'm like, both. I don't have data on this particular machine that goes back years, right? But the other one, it's like been the same machine, all those scans.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna take like, again, I do actually believe that this number here, the 10.4, is probably a closer representation to what I actually see in the mirror. Because I could assume people that are closer to 5%, like stage ready, look completely different than I do in the mirror right now.
way different.
Way
Yeah, way
different,
different.
right? So
And
I mean,
that comes to show, like, I think because we've done some DEXA scans on people that do like physique shows where
mhm.
they'll come out at a higher body fat percent on the DEXA scan, but they look like they're ready to be on stage. And I think that also just comes to show how everyone getting closer, the closer you are to your genetic potential of leanness and like what you're able to hold for 24 hours. This is like a 20, not even 24 hours, maybe like 12 hours. Like the body fat you can hold for maybe 12 hours just looks so different for everyone.
Yeah, and I don't have it on here, but there was a trend of it. So the biggest takeaway though is, like in all the scanning and all those things, the newer software does some newer things too. Which again, I was actually I called you a little concerned the first time. I was like, dude, I actually have like what seems like a lot of visceral fat, right? And I
Yeah,
think I know that like you're talking like there's a lot of popular things that are going on with scans and machines, right? Um, and so now, remember the last time I called you?
yeah.
The visceral fat. Actually, you have an email that you sent me. I can find it.
But
Um,
actually, that looks good, and the fact that your volume in inches cubed is not even close to anything standard. Like, so
no,
you look great.
so yeah, but the first time I did that scan, because I called you, I was like, "What is yours?" And you're like, "I think it was like point 0.1 or point 0.2 or whatever." But like you're always in the super low teens lean, and not a lot in the belly fat area or visceral area, right?
Yeah, low.
And so the first time I did it, I was like 1.11 pounds,
Yeah,
32.63 cubic inches to this scan here, where it's basically a fourth of what it was, while doing that phase. Um, and again, like we had some patients that come in and talk about, they want to know their visceral fat, and we're like, whoa, let's just start with your total first. Like this reading becomes like, obviously it is a marker for that, and it'll improve, but as your total body is improving, and
it'll
like
come down.
this didn't like I can't target this specifically, right?
Yeah,
But
just a little bit about the visceral adipose tissue or visceral fat, the invisible fat underneath the organs, like or like in the organs, the one we can't really see. Like obviously subcutaneous, we could really manipulate a little bit faster, and the visceral one, it will come down over time. But I think people need one thing that they should learn is it's visceral adipose tissue. I think is affected more so from like the hormonal and lifestyle components and recovery components than it is like killing yourself with workouts and dieting yourself into a fat loss phase. Because if you're, I've seen DEXA scans where people are like teens, low teens body fat, but have a high VAT just because they don't sleep and they don't manage their stress. So it's like if you could do those two things too. So it's just a reminder that like it's a system. It's not I just diet and I exercise. Great components, amazing components, but if you don't manage your stress and get your sleep and recover with a great lifestyle, like you could have the lowest body fat, but your visceral adipose can still also be compromised.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's well said. So, um, all right. So, Seamus, to kind of like wrap up that part of like quote myself, from starting scan to ending scan was a total of 92 days. 92 days was able to get me basically 10% body fat change on the one.
Woo!
Um,
Good job, dude. Good job. Be proud of yourself, man. You should be proud of yourself. That's good work, dude.
yeah, which was 12 weeks. 12 weeks of
Yeah,
work,
yeah. And
right?
you still got a few more few
Thir-
weeks just to, like taper it in, right?
yeah, actually, it was 13 weeks in one day. So 13 total weeks to get there, which equates to 0.75%. So basically 3% per month, right? Like if you do like a normal calendar month being 28 days, right? Roughly, or 30 days. Yeah. So, um, again, like, and that is like, so the difference with like what I was doing and like this, like, I guess the stringency of like, tracking and measuring. I mean, I feel like I didn't really even take a cheat meal. Like I worked in pizza, like I like worked it in, not like didn't log it kind of thing. Like I feel like that could really be, again, I'm sure people could do it even better than myself or be more aggressive with it. But
Yeah.
after that first scan where the between like the delta of the lean mass was so high, I was like, shit, is it too quick? Is it too aggressive? Was my set point too low in the beginning?
No, I think I like I said, like it held. So I think that was like more true of like your less water and
Oh
it's
yeah. Well,
you know.
yeah. But I mean, to give you a perspective, like after really focusing on building for God, 2 years effectively, right? Um, and then finally like putting in there, my calories have never dipped below like there's days where it was intentionally like a little lower. I was like, man, I'm just not going to eat today because like I think something's coming up this weekend, and then it didn't happen. I was like, no, I'm fine. Like I don't need it. Like like giving
Yeah,
myself
yeah,
some grace for it, which really helped my psychology too. 25 20 it was like 25 2600, like on average across like the month to month like data. um and the thing now is like kind of as I'm tinkering into the reversing phase, it's like just a slow bump up from like the 26 to about like 28ish. And I actually have more energy, so I'm doing more movement. Like my movement stayed pretty consistent, didn't try to overdo it. I did some zone 2 stuff, maybe a total of like 10 sessions, so nothing like intense. There was the only thing
like
that
once
was
a week,
like,
pretty much. Yeah,
there was a CrossFit competition in there. So there was one day of like high intensity. There was the CrossFit Open in there as well. So there was like, okay, we'll call it a total of like 7 CrossFit workouts, but no, everything here was purely movement, a little bit of zone 2. I started challenging my walks a little bit more with some rucking 2 days a week. And nothing crazy though. I mean, again, I think
no,
if people can build that base, like, and spend more time, in my eyes, like if you live in a world like in perpetuity, you're more concerned about building than you are losing, because when you can like hone it in for, again, a decent grip, like a 90-day kind of challenge. And
yeah,
I thank Bonnie for challenging me to like get ready for our birthdays in June,
yeah,
or else this wouldn't have happened. So now I'm like,
yeah. I'll be honest with you, like you, you spent a lot of time, and I think we talked about this like at the beginning of our like just getting to know each other. But like my background is I was in a there's clients I know, there's people that I know socially, just from my understanding. A lot of people I know are like in a constant state of like always wanting to lose,
yes,
you know,
don't
and that
don't do
constant state
that.
of always wanting to lose, and they never get there. They never get there because it's always on their mind, and I think it just takes up too much mental space and too much like lifestyle challenges. Where you just gotta allow yourself, like what kind of we were talking about before, like let go of some of the track and let go of some of these things without going overboard. Just go hard on performance metrics, go hard on gaining what you can and build, and then And at some point, then you could do like a bit of a, bit of a cut, and start, instead of building, just start coming down a little bit, and that's where I've had my, like, the last 2 years myself too, where I put on a lot of muscle mass, and now like my muscle mass holds. I can eat a lot more, and I feel like my metabolism and my body, and like you just said, I'm not I'm not killing myself to live in my body, which a lot of people that we work with and a lot of people that I know, um, they do a lot of killing themselves just to get to a body. Like today, I had a client call. This person needs to lose like 67 pounds of like body fat.
Hmm.
But the thing is like they're like, oh, I need to do this, 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 and this, and I'm like, what does success look like without having to kill yourself? What does success look like where it can be sustainable? And like you just said, probably a few zone two workouts, a few lifts,
Hmm.
and maybe some intense stuff here and there just to interject a little bit. But when you're on a bit of a fat loss phase and a cut phase, doing some of the higher intensity stuff can, in my opinion, what I've seen is when you go overboard on high intensity stuff, that's when you got to look in the pantry. That's when you start like, I need something.
Right.
So that's why I keep like an even keel on training. I get it in, I stimulate, not annihilate, and then I just stay level headed. If I go too hard on intensity, I gotta be careful. So yeah,
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I actually found that my recovery was better the days after zone two with some HRV tracking.
yeah,
So there was some benefits there that, again, I only tested that for probably like a month and just, I was like, okay, like if I incorporate this or something with that, like I'm actually feeling better physically, but also like I'm getting at some actual like objective data too. So there's so many ways to like kind of skin it and make a new challenge for yourself amidst those things. And I knew I needed new things to kind of focus on outside of the strength numbers because I knew they were going to go down, and it just other things that kind of like keep the head in the right place. So
yeah,
um, you know, so for sake of keeping this episode a little shorter, and we kind of stumbled on a topic here is like DEXA scans, and you know, uh,
scans,
scans
data,
and dieting data, all those things that can help you with assessing yourself. I think it's a good segue into like a series that we're going to be doing here soon, right?
yeah, yeah,
Unintentionally, we did not do this on purpose. This was purely like this is something I wanted to talk about today. But our goal is to kind of collaborate more with our Cinegenics team, with some of our physicians, so they can bring in their expertise in different areas of like age management medicine, hormones in general. And actually most of our physicians did have a specialty practice before going into the age management stuff, so they'll probably even talk about some of those things if we can queue up the right questions. So we want to let our
yeah,
listeners know about that,
right,
along with bringing in a multitude of other performance health coaches that we get the pleasure to working with every day, in a remote setting. I wish we could all be together, but we constantly talk about concepts, ideas, and I think that'll be a
yeah,
good one to segue into, what, like you just said, the more about like the popularity that has blown up, I think, exponentially since we talked about
yeah.
the Ozempic stuff like a year ago, right?
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second, and just to pre-frame, guys, what we do with work. I think what we do for work, like, I love it. I don't feel like it's work. It's just stuff that I nerd out about. Marcos nerds out about. Luckily, we get paid to do it. But what I'd love to do is, from a concierge medicine standpoint, if you guys have questions for doctors about longevity, whether that's hormones, labs, things like that, put those questions in. From a performance perspective, we've got like a VO2 bike behind me, like we talk about those things. What about the DEXA? What about strength and conditioning? What
Postural
other
analysis with the Phi health.
postural
Yeah.
analysis, the Phi health? There's so many different tests that we do. Um, I feel like one of our mentors said, it's like we do a lot of things really well, and then we culminate it into what we call like your score in the Synergenics organization. So each person, we do all these tests. We're almost like generalists, but each person is probably really good at a certain aspect of it. For example, the VO2, one of our performance health coaches, kills it at Ironmans, ultramarathons, and things like that. So we'll talk about that. The Phi health. I personally, for me, I think like I'm more into that stuff because I love pain-free movement stuff that translates into like mobility training or whatever, and then all this stuff. So we could definitely have some questions queued up about certain of each if you guys are questioning on that. So do that. And yeah, I love this field, the field of longevity. And then that big thing that we're talking about too is the popularity of longevity, health span, lifespan has culminated some things like the fat loss drugs that we're dealing with right now, which is like the big topic. And it's something that we deal with day to day, right, Marcos?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's actually really amazing to like actually get people that like have the conversation as they're using it because they're, what should I do? Like they're asking the questions, how am I making sure I'm losing body fat, the right weight versus just like weight in general? So we want
Yes.
to express a lot of like key things, and we'll maybe do an episode on how to maximize fat loss with a GLP-1
Yeah.
in a future episode, because I think that I have a lot of theories and ideas, and one
Yeah.
that lately I'm kind of like testing, like, even though it's like kind of in the more in the deficit sense of like, do
Yeah.
essential amino acids actually help with like, like in a rebuilding phase, or like help promote like keeping that tissue looking a little better because of the bioavailability. There's, so we'll touch on those as well.
We're gonna touch, and we're gonna really. I think what you guys are gonna see as the audience is we're gonna have a summer series, pretty much like a season episode of performance health coaches, docs, and stuff like that. So just be ready.
Mhm.
We're really excited. We've already got a bunch of these queued up and ready to go. But we're gonna be talking about these things in each episode, whether we go in big tangents or we really specialize. Like for example, on the Ozempic, like we're gonna go deep into it because that
Yeah.
each topic itself has a book. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my
And
God.
we really,
Literally, there's someone who wrote a book on Ozempic and was on the Diary of a CEO podcast. So like,
coming out. You
you
know.
know,
So,
so yeah, there's so much to. There's exciting times where like to actually take charge with your health, and
yeah.
as coaches, we want to have people pick decisions that are best for themselves, but also ask the question like, can I do this forever? Do I need to do this other thing for forever, or is it a kickstart because it's helping like rewire habits and like other things that are super important?
So many things, and there's so much nuance because what we're trying to do here at the macro perspective too is kind of like this author. I think his name's Johan, something like that. In the book he has coming out, it's called like the Magic Pill. But he literally, I think Marcos and I would like to do is just present the information as is.
Mm-hmm. And our anecdotal
Pros,
experience with people using it.
yeah, the experience using it, pros and cons, and then weigh that out. Not necessarily interpret it, but like give it to you so you can interpret it for yourself, whether you want to do it or not. Whether that's do the Ozempic, or like I need a DEXA scan, or like I need to do a VO2, like just showing you everything that we know,
Mhm.
and then you taking action on that knowledge base. And we're not trying to gatekeep any knowledge. You know what I'm saying? We're trying to give everything that we can do. Um, as best as possible because honestly, this time is super exciting. Like 10 years ago when I was getting into this field, like I don't know anything. I don't know anything relevant about this field in terms of like what brands or people were like at the top of this, except for like maybe some YouTube stars like Six Pack Abs or like Scott Herman or something like that. And that was just a fitness thing. That was fitness. Now you're talking about like this whole health and wellness field, longevity, health span, and like you've got the Mount Rushmores of it with brands and people. And I want Synergenics, our company, us, Marcos, everyone that we know, for you guys to have that and be like, dang, here you go.
Yeah, so we're excited about that. It's going to be really cool, and yeah, I mean, we'll tackle everything. Maybe we even devote into all the diagnostic stuff with one of our coaches and things that they're noticing and how it influences conversations with their clinical care team. And yeah, I mean, we kind of have a little bit of something for everything, for everybody these days at Cenogenics, which is kind of really cool. It's no longer just, elite health evaluations as we used to call it. It's really performance health, and, whether it is diagnostics and, access to like super high quality blood work that actually looks at everything. And, we have something that, again, anybody that's kind of putting stock into health should really consider. So we look forward to that. And yeah, until we get into those episodes, we are out for today. Like, comment, subscribe, ask those questions, questions you'd like us to bring to the table for our team, our physicians, our other coaches. If you guys could do that, that'd be really helpful because we really can't think of all the questions. And sometimes y'all have things that are, super important to bring up in conversation.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Questions as a consumer, that'll be for us. So, all right.
All
Thanks,
right.
guys. We're out.